Hello, people of the internet. This is KaijuNoir.
And Pete,
And you know what, Pete? Guess what?
what's going on?
It's 2014. It's 2015 now,
I
man.
thought it was 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's back in 2013 when we first started these reviews. But yeah, man, we are living in the future right now. You know. This morning I put on my self-lacing shoes. I came on over here on my hoverboard, and we watched a bit of Jaws 19 before starting this thing. You know, life is good, man.
And you look pretty monstrous right now, too.
What do you mean by that? Anyways, yes, hello people. Once again, we are doing another one of these wrap-up reviews where, yeah, funny enough, with 2014, like you and I, Pete, we were like incredibly busy to where, even though we tried our best to keep up with watching the latest films that come out in theaters, it's been really difficult, I guess, to find the time to get the chance to make these reviews together. I mean, I even had help from Tony, who helped me do those like summer reviews.
The college life.
The college life.
That's what it is.
Yeah, in the meantime, I had like Shoe Watch going on and pretty much like none of my older like scripted reviews. But yeah, we are here to do this thing, one last bit of a review session, a compilation review series to just cover all the movies that you and I have seen over the last quarter of 2014, starting all the way back in, I want to say August, I believe, with The Book of Life, which was...
That did not come out in August. Has it been that long?
Was it August? Maybe it was in October, maybe.
I think it had to be October because, you know...
Day of the Dead, yeah. So yeah, Book of Life is a movie produced by Guillermo del Toro, and it was made by the same person behind, what was that show called? El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera.
I did not see that.
Neither have I. That show was pretty much before our time.
The only show I remember that was Mexican-oriented was watching Mucha Lucha when I was a little kid.
Yeah, I remember Mucha Lucha. Yeah, El Tigre, it was pretty much, yeah, I think we were already in high school when that show came out, but the person, this is the creator of that show, this is his movie, and you did not see this movie, right?
I don't think I did, no.
No. It was a really interesting film. I mean, it's a really kind of generic story, but at the same time, it's very creative in how... It's like, the story is something you've seen before, like two guys are after one girl, they were all childhood friends, but then it's kind of like what they do with the whole concept of death and the afterlife. That's really interesting. I like the characters. The actors do a really good job. I like how the songs in that movie, they take like pop songs and put a little Latin flavor on them. Let's see. The characters are very hyper, very over the top, cartoonish. Kind of similar to, I want to say, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs or with Hotel Transylvania, and just how exaggerated they are. I really like the art style where they made all the characters look like wooden puppets.
I was just about to ask you about that because I didn't see it. I did see the trailers for it, and it did have a unique art style that you don't see anywhere else.
Right, and you know what? This was actually due to due to a limitation in the budget, because apparently the creator of the El Tigre creator, the director behind this movie, he wanted to make a movie on the level of Pixar. But I think this was from DreamWorks, I want to say. Maybe not DreamWorks, but this is like some other animation studio that wasn't a non-major animation studio. And they said, no, we cannot create, Pixar or DreamWorks level quality.
Yeah.
So like, you know what? If we can't make our humans look that good, let's take this into a new direction. So they took a limitation and turned it into a positive.
That always happens. I mean, if you have limitations, you always got to come our way around it. So
yeah,
there's always beautiful things that come out of limitations.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people might disagree with me, especially Adam, but I always like the idea of like writing for your budget. Like, don't try to make it something if you don't have the budget for it. Work your way around it, and do something that able to fit your budget and able to come out on top in a creative way. But yeah, the animation is beautiful. I love that art style. I actually think it looks better in 3D animation than it did on like El Tigre, because that same art style I've seen in that Cartoon Network show Mad. I'm not sure if Mad is still on anymore, but yeah, I was never really a fan of that weird kind of like very flat, angular, like blocky like very orangish color, like bright orange hues color. But I think it worked better here. And anything else I like to say about it? It's kind of interesting where it's like me being, you and I being of Mexican descent, having a movie that was actually kind of like based on like our culture, or at least like the culture of our not ethnic background, I guess our ancestors. I felt like it was very respectful in that case.
Well represented?
Well represented, because I guess, like, I've always been kind of tired of the Mexicans always being portrayed as, like, these, like, nothing but stereotypes.
The borrachos.
Borrachos. There are a lot of sombreros in this movie, but I feel like it did a really good job at making, portraying a movie a Mexican movie without making it feel like they're trying so hard to make it a Mexican movie. I'm not sure if that makes any sense.
Now, did we get to see any semblance of death or the characters?
Death?
Death. Like, was there a version of death in this?
Yeah. There was like kind of like there was 3 gods in this movie. One played by Ron Perlman, who's an awesome badass actor. He's kind of like the king of the. There are like these 2 versions of the afterlife where it's like people who are remembered in life, who they get to go to like this, I guess kind of like the equivalent of heaven, whereas the people who have done nothing to be remembered in life, then they go to the land of the forgotten, kind of like hell, where they just like wither away. And then there's like some other, I forget, I think it was, I can't remember the woman who played like the person, the goddess who was in charge of that afterlife, but then there's like Ice Cube, who for some reason is in this movie.
What?
Yeah, I feel like he was like felt really out of place in here. Like, yeah, I'm Ice Cube. I'm gonna drop some reference. Today was a good day. I'm like, no, man.
Well, I'm just gonna say this, totally irrelevant to the movie, but what was the cheesiest quote you heard this year?
Cheesiest quote.
That's pretty cheesy considering it's in a kids' film and it's a meme. It's a reference, yeah. But what's the cheesiest quote? Because I have them for you here, and I don't think anything you have is gonna beat it.
I can't remember, but just go ahead.
All right, it was from Alexander the Horrible, No Good, Terrible, Bad Day.
Oh
whatever.
no!
Hashtag blessed. The kid literally pulls out his fingers and says, "I'm hashtag blessed." I face palmed so much. I'm like,
boy.
There was saying it on the internet, but then saying it in actual sentence and phrase, I'm just like...
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think internet lingo should just stay on the internet. But anyways, I guess my biggest complaint with Book of Life was that it really feels... The pacing itself feels like a television...
Special?
A television special rather than an actual movie where, like, things are always happening, characters are always moving, characters are always talking, the story goes at a very breakneck speed without taking any time to take a break and do something else or slow down. And that's why I feel like this guy has worked on television before a lot, and it feels like he's still treating this like if it was a television production. Where it's like we gotta keep going. We can't stop.
So did it ever die down? Did that action ever slow down to a halt?
No. No, but overall, it was a really decent movie, very enjoyable, very fun to look at. It's pretty much it was a decent movie. You'll have a lot of fun time. So I'll give it above average 3 out of 5. So let's see. Moving on is the stop motion animated film Boxtrolls.
Did not see that.
Also did not see that. We're gonna go to a lot of movies that you did not see. Boxtrolls, a lot less interesting than A Book of Life. It was made by the same production company behind Coraline, and did they make a movie after that?
Really? I love Coraline. Well,
Yeah.
who were the ones that were in charge of Paranorman and...
Paranorman, that was the other one I was looking for. Boxtrolls, it feels like it was kind of like maybe trying to ride the wave of like... I've been seeing this trend where ever since Despicable Me came out, everyone's trying to do that whole let's have a bunch of little minions, little tiny creatures, cute little tiny creatures that can't speak English but just go into wacky hijinks.
So they do it too.
They do it too, yeah, and that's like the majority of the movie is just those box trolls, and they're kind of interesting. I like they use these boxes and the way they use their boxes to move around their environments is interesting. The story itself is kind of like where there's this human, he's raised by the Boxtrolls, and then he learns how to live amongst the humans, so he's kind of like the bridge between these two societies. And it's like you have like the rich people, they're kind of like the 1% trying to keep the lower class down. Literally, the Boxtrolls are like the poor people who are literally driven underground.
Wow. They're mole people.
The mole people, yeah. And I like the villain. The villain is probably like the most memorable thing about the movie, where he's like a human who wants to get rid of the Boxtrolls in order to impress like the higher ups in society, so that he can join them. And he's like just batshit insane. He's like the extremes he's willing to go to fit into that high class society. Is just like, wow, man. I didn't think you can get away with that in a kids movie. But the two main children, very generic. The girl in this movie, she's wants to have like more time with her father. The father doesn't pay a lot of attention to her, and she's trying to break free. Kind of much like Book of Life. It's fun at certain points. It's not gonna feel like you just wasted like 2 hours of your time. But like I said, a lot less interesting.
No, this is one movie that I didn't even see advertised very much myself. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because I don't watch much TV, but I just didn't see any. Like, I saw tons of advertisements for Book of Life online and on TV, but this, nothing.
Interestingly enough, I saw a lot of advertisement for Boxtrolls at the AMC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because before the trailers would begin, they would have this section called AMC First Look. And they always had Boxtrolls. I mean, the employees themselves were wearing Boxtrolls shirts. There's AMC must have had some partnership to advertise that movie above others. Before I forget, I remember the henchman, the villain. He had two henchmen. They're kind of like dissecting the common cliches of henchmen in storytelling. And they're kind of like questioning just what is good and what is evil. It's amusing a bit. And I like how at the end of the movie, they're talking about, hey, wouldn't it be weird if there's someone who's like controlling our movements? Imagine all of the hours people must spend while they are changing. I mean, look, I am hopping around.
They're breaking the fourth wall.
And then they slow the animation down so you actually see the person moving the puppet.
Oh, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, it's like, look at me, I'm dancing around. Can you imagine what it must be like if there's some mystical force out there having to move me? But yeah, it was kind of interesting meta humor here, but like I mentioned, Boxtrolls is a decent flick. Also, another 3 out of 5. See, moving on. Big Hero 6. Now, you just saw this movie.
Yes, I did.
So, Big Hero 6 is the Disney's first adaptation of a Marvel property, turning it into an animated film. From what I understand, it's a comic book that nobody really cares about. I mean, I'm sorry for any hardcore Big Hero 6 fans out there, but, well, let's be facing, nobody cares about Big Hero. Nobody knew what Big Hero 6 was.
Nope.
I mean, Disney went after an obscure property so they can make it their own. I mean, that's the case with a lot of their adaptations, where they change a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they turn them into movies.
Yeah.
Like The Little Mermaid, like Ariel dies in the original story.
Yeah. What happens to her? She gets thrown into the water and goes to heaven. I think she goes.
Yeah, she goes to heaven. Yeah, she tries to commit suicide. She commits suicide by going back in the water, thinking that she'll turn back.
Yeah.
The Ice Queen is completely different from Frozen.
Hunchback.
Depressing
as all hell.
Depressing. He dies.
He dies next to her bones.
Esmeralda. She dies, and then when she's buried, what's his name? The Hunchback. Quasimodo, he goes into her, into her like coffin and hugs her before he dies. He eventually starves to death.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then there's one other one.
Wasn't like Snow White? Doesn't like Sleeping Beauty, where it's like the prince like impregnates her while she was asleep.
I think so. These are all like horrible, dark stories that have been told for kids.
So if you're surprised that Disney would make so many changes to a property, come on, it's happened so long. But Big Hero 6, there's this boy named Hiro Hamada. He is a brilliant inventor, but he uses all his talent on just like underground robot fighting. And but then he is inspired by his brother to do something with his life. And along the line his brother gets killed because, hey, it's a Disney movie. You have to have a dead relative in there somehow.
Well, you already have 2 dead relatives. Mommy and Daddy are already dead.
Yeah. Well, then, so Hero, he kind of uses the help of his older brother's robot, Baymax, and along with his brother's friends from school, and together they team up, become a superhero team to find his brother's killer and the person who is set out to do something with Hero's stolen inventions, which are like this mass of nanobots.
So now, well, you put it bluntly. I don't want you to tell like what you described this whole movie. Mm-hmm. What was it to you? One big.
I forgot, what did I say?
You said it was one big Scooby-Doo episode.
Yes. The whole mystery angle of who is this kabuki masked villain. It's very Scooby-Doo-ish, where it's like, yeah, you got like this guy here or this guy here. One is really obvious that he's the villain, but it's actually the other person. So yeah, when I watched this movie in theaters, I already predicted who the villain was, like maybe like, I don't know, like 20 minutes into the film.
And you saw me deducing it as it went on, obviously.
Yeah. Although you kind of guessed it like maybe like 5 minutes before he was revealed.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. I liked Hero. I loved Baymax. I thought he was much more interesting than what I've read from the original comics. I love how like Baymax is very intelligent, yet he's not stupid. He's not socially. He's not. He knows how to interact with people, but there are a lot of things he doesn't understand and learns about when it comes to like what do you call it, figure of speeches and common expressions that allow him to.
Reminded me of Drax from Guardians.
Drax, yeah, Guardians. Or I was thinking like this was like an older movie. Do you remember Osmosis Jones?
Yes.
Remember the pill Drix? Yeah, he was like very formal. Was kind of learning the lingo a bit.
Yeah.
I love this too. As for all the other characters, they have their quirks here and there, but they're never really treated anymore as just like they never really get to explore the side characters all that much. Although I guess my favorite would have to be Fred.
For one reason only, right?
Well, yeah, he's basically like my friend Jacob Baker. He gets to have his own kaiju suit, and then, has powers out based off that. And the way he acts reminds me a lot of this coworker I have. He's like, hey, man, wouldn't it be cool if we just had this like really strange idea that I'm about to explain right now?
Oh, my gosh.
But, yeah, I know a lot of people, I guess, who are like kaiju fans who heard about Fredzilla are disappointed that he doesn't actually transform or use psychic energy or whatever to turn into actual giant monsters.
He's just in a
guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that. Personally, I like that more. I don't know. It just seems more creative to just like make a little homage to like, the kaiju suit actors of the past. And I don't know. I guess this whole movie, I don't know. I was really excited for this movie because I thought it was going to be like a tribute maybe to like a lot of old school like Japanese giant robots and henshin heroes like Kamen Rider and whatnot, or Super Sentai. It didn't really feel like that. I mean, I saw little homages here and there like the Rocket Punch, but for the most part, it just feels like a kind of a bit of an average superhero movie where it's. I remember I brought up like the hero's journey, and we're like, "Yep, this is the beat right here. This is the beat right here."
Describing it one piece per piece, literally following. Yeah. It didn't
break the path.
Yeah, exactly.
Break the mold.
Break the path, yeah,
and that's not to say that something follows the hero's journey is not a bad thing per se. It's just that when you're doing a story that's been done before, we have similar beats. You got to do something interesting with that. Star Wars follows the hero's journey to a T, and it's an amazing movie. Yeah, different. The Lego Movie was a movie that followed the hero's journey again, very creative and a lot of witty dialogue, memorable characters. Here they do enough just to be good, but they don't push it far, and they don't push it far enough. I think in terms of the writing.
Yeah, I think that, it's nothing itself is unique about it. Really, I mean,
outside of Baymax, maybe, yeah.
Even then, I guess Baymax a little bit, but yeah, there's nothing super unique about this movie, and it's a Disney movie, so with Disney, people tend to think a little higher at Disney, and I don't know if it's a bad thing of having that mentality, but again, like you said, for me, it was a completely average movie.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, like, Frozen, last year's Frozen and even Wreck-It Ralph from the previous year were better than this movie, I guess.
Yeah, like when I saw the trailer for this movie, I was, no, like I wasn't expecting anything good out of it, and I guess I was more expecting something bad out of it. And the final product that I got was in the middle. Nothing, nothing too crazy, but.
Yeah, although watching it the second time around, it was a lot better than I remembered it being. But then again, it kind of loses its charm and just goes into, big fight in the middle of the city that we've seen before. Let's just say, like, I'm not gonna be praying for a sequel or something like that, because I don't see this kind of premise being I don't see this growing outside of just one movie. Maybe a television series, maybe a direct-to-video short, but yeah, I don't see this becoming a big franchise, really.
Would you want to watch it again?
I'd say so. Maybe with this is like a movie that I can just show to my cousins or whatever.
Would you buy it on Blu-ray?
No, I would not. Yeah, another 3 out of 5 for me.
For me, like everything you said was on point. I think we're pretty much agreed it was a standard movie. For me, I'd probably give it like 3. That might even be close to cutting it.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Moving on.
Yeah.
We have Interstellar, which is the latest Christopher Nolan movie. Did you see this one?
No, and I've been wanting to watch it for so long, and I just haven't had the time. See, the problem with movies like Interstellar, Gravity, those are movies that take some dedication to watch. You need to be have time to be invested.
Right. Because just like Gravity, Interstellar is more of an experience. You have to get ready. You have to set yourself in the mood. You got to get ready for those 3 hours, because you know how long Christopher Nolan movies are. And it's really interesting with the reception. Like, people either really like it or really hate it. And I guess a lot of the themes and messages are, again, you either take it or leave it. And for me, I love this movie. And wow, this basically, the story is that it's in the somewhere in the near future where the climate's changed. A lot of the food that the humans depend on is pretty much non-existent. At this point, I think we only rely on mostly corn right now. By right now, I mean in the movie, and even then, the corn is predicted to die off in the near future, and so I think it was like a group of scientists plan on sending a team of astronauts into space to find another planet that humans can live on, and or while at the same time trying to develop some new scientific formula to help them live in outer space. And so Matthew McConaughey, he is a former pilot, who stumbles upon the secret thanks to some mysterious ongoings, the subliminal messages that he receives at home that leads him to this the last remnants of NASA. And so he goes on this voyage, and it's kind of a race against time, because they have this very interesting plot device where the longer you stay when you stay in space, there are certain points where time goes slower for you than it does on Earth.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so my coworker was telling me about the movie, and I have this own theory in my head as to what happens, and I swear, because I've heard there's a specific scene where someone cries as he's watching these visual voicemails.
Right, that happens.
And in my head, I can almost picture exactly why. And I'm not gonna say why, because I don't know if it's true or if it's not. But in my head, I can't wait to see it.
But yeah, it's really sad when he's gone, maybe 1 hour on this one planet can lead to 15, 20 years.
I knew it.
It's really yeah. I love it's a very emotional movie, very heartbreaking. It's just you really feel invested for the characters, especially for Matthew McConaughey. I thought he did a great job. I liked. I can't remember the woman who played the female lead, but I also remembered Michael Caine. He was also in this movie as the female lead's father, who's still on Earth, trying to come up with a formula to help humans live in space, if not, on that other planet. And I also like the robot. The robot was really cool. He's kind of this weird, he's this giant he looks like a giant ATM machine, like this big giant block. But then he has a bunch of arms that just like fold out into like different shapes. He kind of almost looks like a Minecraft character with like just two blocky arms, like as his like default mode of transportation. But yeah, I love this movie. Here's the thing, like people, like I mentioned in the beginning, people either like Christopher Nolan's style of directing, people like his dialogues, people like his pacing, other people don't. I, for one, just happen to be a fan of his style, and for me, this movie worked in my favor. And so, yeah, easily one of the best movies I've seen, one of the best experiences I've had in theaters. And so, yeah, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 rating.
Cool. I wish I would have been able to see it, because that's, again, out of all the movies that you have on this list that I haven't seen, that was the only one or the specific one I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Moving on is Birdman. Now, this is another one that I also saw. You didn't see this one.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. I mentioned this story before on Shoe Watch, where I had to go to this theater in, La Jolla, which is kind of like the it's kind of like I guess it's like the San Diego equivalent of like Bel Air, I guess, or Beverly Hills, where like that's where like the people, like the more like upper class people live, I suppose, because the theater there, the ArcLight Cinema, it's like really expensive. I think.
Do they serve you food?
They don't serve you food. You still have to buy food, but the food itself is really expensive. I think like popcorn was like, I don't know, $15 or something, or maybe it was a drink. No, it was a drink that was like $10-15. But yeah, but Birdman, it's the story of this one actor played by Michael Keaton, who used to be known for playing a superhero in the 80s called Birdman, except the actor stopped playing Birdman eventually, and his career never reached that peak ever since. So now he's trying to write and direct and open up a play that he is trying to make a comeback with, and just like everything that can go wrong goes wrong when it comes to his actors, the sets, and the people's perception of him. Like he's trying to please everyone, but pleasing no one at the same time. And while this is all going on, you, the viewer, are questioning whether or not he may or may not be going insane. And this is just a wonderful movie. It feels very experimental, but for the right reasons, where it tries a lot of new things that I don't think have ever been done in quite a while. The movie itself feels like one long shot that never changes, almost similar to Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, where, again, it makes you feel like the whole movie's taking place in one shot, but they do a lot of cinematic techniques to trick you into thinking that's the case. And yeah, a lot of people are in this movie, like Zach Galifianakis, Edward Norton, also another former superhero actor.
Now, what has you surprised is that Zach Galifianakis is in this. And I'm like,
oh, he's much more subdued. Don't worry, this is not Hangover 3 Zach Galifianakis. This is serious Zach Galifianakis. Interestingly enough, there was also what's her name, Emma. What was it? She was Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man. Emma Stone, yeah, she's playing Michael Keaton's daughter, and there's who's else? Another person I remembered from, but anyways, I love the chemistry between all the actors. I loved all the drama. I loved how I was thinking like this movie could be like a representation of like Michael Keaton's, I guess, regrets over abandoning his role as Batman. Like, if looking at this role, it feels like there's still that part of him that wishes he can like relive that experience again. But yeah, it feels like he really gives it his all. He was amazing in this movie. And again, it's like a very, I don't know what's the right word to say this, but very cerebral experience, just like looking into this man's mind and thinking what he thinks, and just hearing that voice, that literal voice in his head, just telling him, how much of a screw-up he's become.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a movie that really just messes with your mind as well. And I guess the last thing to mention, how the soundtrack is nothing but this dude's drums. You just hear nothing but drumming throughout the whole movie, and the drumming gets more and more intense during the more like to match the tone of the scenes. Easily, like, probably one of my favorites of this year, and another 5 out of 5 for me.
Cool.
So moving on is Left Behind, the Nicolas Cage Rapture movie. not to be confused with that other, like, what was it, that Kirk Cameron movie, I think from like the 90s, also called Left Behind, but oh, dear God. So I did not see, this is a direct-to-video movie, I believe. No, maybe it might have had a limited theatrical release, because I remember Brad Jones did a review of this movie in one of his midnight reviews. This is one of Nicolas Cage's many movies that he's done, because I guess he's like really bankrupt right now. He's like, he's just desperate for roles at this point, any role. And this is probably one of the most offensive, despicable, probably most hateful movie I have seen this year. I mean, like, it's like, with Paranormal Activity, the Mexican edition, that was just a stupid movie. This one is just
offensive,
a despicable movie, where it's like, in this world, the rapture happens. Yeah, everyone who is worthy of God, they go up to heaven. Their clothes are behind, and Earth itself, the world, it's happening all around the world, and the whole world has just plunged itself into chaos. Crime everywhere, chaos, death, everything stuff. Planes are just crashing into the ground, like a whole lot of chaos. And what do? We spend the majority of it in a plane with Nicolas Cage as the pilot, saying, "Listen, guys, we have to stay calm. We have to find a way to land this plane." Although this is not even like the crazy over the top Nicolas Cage,
So that's even more. It's what's more wrong.
This is like
even more.
Even more wrong. Yeah, like what was that line? Like, this is like from Ghost Rider 2, like knocking at the door. But dear God, this movie, man. But yeah, like this isn't even like the crazy, entertainingly bad Nicolas Cage. This is like just sleepwalking Nicolas Cage on autopilot. And even him, you gotta be thinking to myself, my God, this is such a terrible movie. Why am I here? I need the money. Oh. And in this movie's logic, if you're the kind of people who goes to heaven are either children, just like all children, like if you're like all children are apparently worthy of God.
You got it, man.
To which I say bullshit, because I've been to middle school and high school and elementary school. I know how terrible children can be. To think that all children are good at heart, I say bullshit.
So now, by children, what's the cutoff date? I want to know if I'm still safe, because I'm still a child at heart.
I don't know, like 13, I guess. I don't know. Just children in general. Like, if you're a child, you're safe. But the thing that really bugs me is that, or just offended me, was that, like, if you're the kind of person who likes to shove religion down people's throat, if you're one of those, like, Bible thumper who says, like, if you don't follow specifically the Bible, you are going to hell. Or if you're the kind of person who says, you know what, it's a good thing that those children died in that earthquake because that's all part of God's plan, you get to go to heaven. If you say this is an actual line in the movie. Really? Like the daughter and the father, they're kind of like, I think they're atheists, or at least maybe like they have a hard time believing in God.
They lost the faith.
They lost their faith. It's like, well, why does God? Well, here's the thing. Even with like among atheists, like, or like maybe what do you call them?
Agnostics.
Agnostics, yeah. They say, like, why is God doing this? Like, how could God allow this to happen? And while all the religious people, there's like, God is doing all of this because, this all is happening for a reason. And I can get behind that, I guess, like, you've heard the phrase, everything happens for a reason. It's all part of God's plan. I guess that I can see that how it helps people, like God has a path for all of us. I mean, I don't want to specifically criticize that sort of logic, because I know that I've heard that being, like, raised Catholic, I've heard that phrase throughout my whole life. But when you're saying that, like, people are dying, and you're saying that it's a good for them. Good for you. I'm like, there is something seriously wrong with you. And the people in this movie, the daughter and the father, they make a good point. They make good arguments as to why their mother is terrible.
What do they say?
just those kind of things. That's that thing when I brought up, like, like her mother thinks that it's a good thing that those children died because it's part of God's plan. That's an actual line in the movie. And guess what? The mother goes to heaven. So yeah, if you're the person who just shoves religion down people's throats, you're safe. Those are the good people apparently in this movie.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
And even like I looked at this movie, it has like God, I don't know, like maybe 10 or maybe less than 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, and even like there have been like Christians hate this movie. Like the target demographic are like, fuck this movie. And yeah, like the movie's boring. The acting is very subpar, amateurish. Here's the thing: the idea of making a movie based on the Rapture, I'd say the Rapture itself is an interesting premise for a movie. Just like how does the world react to something like this? But the movie never does anything with the Rapture. Again, spends most of the time in the airplane or with the daughter just walking around the city seeing stuff blow up. I'm like, what happens to the government? What happens to the internet?
Oh, well, the government, they're all Christians, so they're all going to fly away. You can't be in government if you're not religious.
Well, you've heard of all those scandals, remember? But yeah, what happens to the government? What happens to the world leaders? What happens to the internet? What happens to, does the trade still happen? Does law enforcement still happen? I mean, apparently not. Apparently every single cop or the majority of cops disappeared because no one is attempting to stop any of this. And it's just like a complete mess, a complete failure. A movie that maybe I'm not doing my best to describe just how horrendous this movie is, but it just offended me to my core.
Would you say it's the worst movie of the year?
Quite possibly. It's like, fundamentally, this movie's message is saying, unless you live, breathe, eat, and die by the Bible in the most literal way possible, if you don't do any of that, your life is meaningless.
That's a terrible message.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about it. Like I consider myself a religious person, but I don't 100%. I don't go to church every single week. I don't do like everything that I guess the Roman Catholic religion tells dictates. But it's very hard to describe, but like everything this movie preaches,
it's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
It's wrong.
It's everything that's wrong with religion.
It's right. Everything that's wrong with a religion. Just taking everything, on a very literal definition.
Hey, well, maybe this movie did what it wanted to do. Maybe it's an anti-religion movie. Doesn't that then make it the best movie?
But like that's what I'm saying. But then the overly religious people, they're supposedly the ones that get to get out of this game safely. They don't get punished.
But maybe they made this movie so bad on purpose. I don't know. It's anti-religion. Case closed. I solved it.
It's a movie that shows why over religion is, or just like, I don't know. Oh dear God!
It's showing.
Is this a movie that shows like religion is stupid?
It's showing the delusions of the overly religious in an attempt to discredit religion and make religion seem bad. And that's my final thought. It is a great movie, and I'm glad I saw it.
You did not see this movie. Well, it is available on Redbox right now, but yeah, fuck this movie. No. 1 out of 5. Let's see, moving on. Okay, Into the Storm. Now, this one was much earlier in the year. I just happened to catch this movie during Christmas, because this is one of those movies that, like those Redbox movies that one of my uncle rented. I don't know why, because we always tend to watch bad movies at Christmas with them. Like last year, I think I've told you when we did this whole like best and worst thing that they picked The Purge, and so we watched The Purge, and I was getting all those horrific flashbacks, Rambo style.
Tradition, man. It's tradition.
Now we're watching these horrible movies. Well, now we watch Into the Storm, and Into the Storm, I remember you and I, we called it Twister 2, The Twistening. Because that's all it is. It's just special effects with a half-assed story. Only this time, there's incredibly awful cinematography. Remember, did we watch, what was it called? The one with those two cop movies with Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena, I believe.
Nightcrawler, was it?
No, that's another movie that came out this year.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
I'm not sure. Did we saw? What was it? But it was two cops, and it kind of looked like it was a found footage movie because they were all having cameras on their uniforms. Except half the time, you would see both of them on screen, but there'd still be a shaky cam. So you're like, is there an invisible man? Is the invisible man, holding a camera?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so it's like making you think it's found footage because half the time it is recorded footage from the perspective of the characters, and other times it's from the invisible man.
Maybe it's a Twister.
The Twister is holding a camera. That's why everything's shaky. But this is the exact same case where it's like you have a bunch of people with cameras and phones and whatnot, and the webcams, and half the time it's just a really terrible cameraman who's, I guess, like the invisible man, or in your case, the Twister. And there's a big gigantic storm. There's a bunch of tornadoes going on. They kind of combine to a super tornado. And it's kind of like it's like Sharknado without the sharks.
I think Sharknado 2 came out this year.
Yeah, it's Sharknado without the sharks. And stuff blows up, stuff gets torn apart. I'll admit the special effects are really interesting, but a lot of the characters are very, very typical. I mean, you had the stupid rednecks, you had you have like the dude who's obsessed with his work even at the cost of others around him. You have the innocent person who's like, I'm not cut out for this, man. Game over, man. Game over. The guy.
I need to interrupt you because since you mentioned Sharknado,
yeah.
How the hell does Sharknado have 82% on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's a weird phenomenon. It's like, it's so bad, it's good. Well, even though it's a movie that was like, it was made to be so bad, it's good.
I get that, but even those movies still usually have low ratings, don't they? I mean,
some people just really like them. They're saying like, oh, it's the new Plan 9, it's the new Troll 2. And like, no, not really. I mean, it's all manufactured, man.
I don't know. I'm looking at the room, still has 33%. Let's see, Plan 9. This is ridiculous.
From outer space.
Ah. $66. I mean, how does Sharknado have an 88?
Was that Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I get that there's movies that are so bad they're good, but they still tend to have low ratings. But Sharknado, 88%.
I'm pretty sure that's higher than the majority of Godzilla movies, unfortunately.
That's a sin.
Yes. Well, yeah, Into the Storm, very forgettable outside of special effects. The kids teenagers are annoying. They have the typical, like, you don't understand me, Dad. You're never there for us. Dear God, am I tired of that cliche? Like, especially, like, you have, like, the working father, who's very distant from his kid, and, like, hey, kid, be respectful, He's putting food on the table right now. I don't see you. Apparently, your mother's not in the picture. So... Yeah, this is a terrible movie, but I guess it can be entertaining to some degree. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. All right, so now the second to last movie we have up is The Interview, the infamous film that North Korea threatened to, or apparently some affiliates of North Korea, people who claim to be affiliated with North Korea, they hacked Sony and then they threatened Sony or like theaters to show The Interview. There's a big hullabaloo over that. I'm pretty sure I covered it on the New Year special on the Sons of Serizawa podcast. But now the movie has been released online and in limited theaters. And yeah, we saw it, and here we are to give our opinion on it.
It was okay.
Yeah. It's kind of it's unfortunate because, like the whole controversy kind of built this movie up as being like this is a big like symbol of like censorship, and the movie was becoming bigger than it ever would have been if it weren't for like the threats and the hacks and the badness.
And you heard all this controversy and debates whether they should release it or not. Theaters not showing it, Sony's still trying to show it, trying to find someone to show it, and obviously the whole situation overshadowed the actual movie itself.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the movie itself it certainly doesn't live up to the hype at all. I mean, I was genuinely excited for the movie. I thought it was going to be really funny. This is made by the same team behind This Is the End. It just happens to be another Rapture movie that gets it right, I guess, from a different angle though. But it's entertaining, much more entertaining than Left Behind. But yeah, I highly enjoyed This Is the End. And I was excited for this movie, and wow, this movie could have been something. But I guess the main problem with this movie is that it just doesn't know when to let a good joke die, where it would have a good joke and then let it continue. And continue on, and have it go on much longer than it should have.
Are we talking The Hobbit?
No. I'm talking about the internship, the interview.
No, I'm talking. Are you talking about the Hobbit jokes that went on throughout the whole movie?
The Lord of the Ring Hobbit jokes. Well, I can understand that that's a running gag, but I mean, like in the same scene, they would let a joke go on for so long to the point where it stops being funny. Like the very beginning of the movie, we had the little girl who was singing about Death to America or whatever.
That does go on for quite a while.
I think it went on for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I think.
And it's like, oh, hey, that's funny. Oh, that's less funny, and that was getting annoying. Just get to the movie, please.
Yeah, and that we were like, this. I hope this doesn't happen for the rest of the movie. Oh, and it happens.
Family Guy does that a lot.
Yeah, they'll let a joke go on and on and on and on. But and the thing is, like, another huge issue was perhaps like James Franco's character, where he's just so over the top, so foul-mouthed, so idiotic. Yeah. It's like he becomes Zach Galifianakis from Hangover 3, where he's like he's supposed to come off as stupid, like charmingly stupid. But he's not charmingly stupid. He's just annoyingly stupid.
He's a caricature is what he is.
A caricature, yeah. And I've seen, you could probably say, that's how he does most of his roles. Well, the thing is, I have seen, last year's This Is the End. I thought he worked well in that movie. But the thing is, you have one person who is funny, Seth Rogen. He's like much more subdued kind of funny. But he does get over the top at times, but it works. Whereas with James Franco, he pushes it to 11.
Yeah, Mr. Skylark.
All the time.
Skylark, just in his mugginess too, just saying all his.
Yeah. And I do have to say that I really liked Kim Jong-un's in this movie. I gotta say, like, Kim Jong-un should be happy that he got played by this actor who looks nothing like him. Like I mentioned, he looks like Japanese Eric Cartman.
I know, he looks taller, he looks slimmer.
Even though supposedly he gained weight for this role.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
You didn't gain enough weight.
No, you should be happy for what you got.
You know what hurts worse than nuclear weapons? Words.
Here you go. I'm trying to think of other funny.
I gotta say though, it did get better. Like I like the chemistry that James Franco had with the actor who played Kim Jong Un. Yes. I like that little thing they did with Katy Perry's fireworks.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's the scenes I like the most were with Skylark and Kim Jong Un together. Those tended to be my favorites. Mm-hmm. Though some of the early interactions with Seth Rogen are pretty funny too. Mm-hmm. What was he saying? Hold on, I'm trying to... He's like, you want it? Feast your eye.
Oh, yeah. He had to strip down. He has to strip you down. He has to strip down from the guards. You're like, there, see it! See it!
And then James Franco, too, when he's talking about with the girl, he's like, feast your eyes! Oh, God. That's terrible. But... Again, there's some scenes where they are funny, but again, James Franco as Skylark just making me angry at times. Just cut it down. Put it down.
Like, God's sake, shut up!
Can you stop being so stupid?
It's like I've seen sort of thing where it's like you have like idiots who are in the middle of like a dangerous situation. I think it was sort of done with Spies Like Us with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, but I don't know. This feels very juvenile. It's like let's just have as many like dirty sex jokes as possible, and I can get behind that to an extent. But it's like they go really overboard with it. It's like let's throw everything. Let's not hold anything back.
Let's face it, though. It's supposed to be an over-the-top movie, though.
Yeah, it's supposed that's what it's supposed to be. It's trying to be edgy and over the top, but I think it's that same kind of approach is kind of what hurts the movie in the end.
I don't know if you caught this the first time we saw it, but I saw the movie again recently, and there's a certain scene in the movie where Skylark literally says what's going to happen at the end of the movie, how they're going to escape, what they're going to do, and by the end of the movie, it actually happens. Even though the lady that they're talking to is like, nope, there's no way, that's never going to happen. You two are crazy. And it happens at the end.
Yeah. But I guess to put it shortly, I guess this movie, there are moments where it works, but I feel like there's more bad jokes, more duds than wins.
Yes.
And because of that, I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 5.
I'd give it a 2.5 because honestly, I did like it. And watching it the second time, I caught some of the things that I missed. Again, Skylark definitely is the
weakest points.
Yeah, Franco. He has the weakest points in this movie. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like I said, I had a good time. I'd watch it again. Yeah.
Not me.
You wouldn't watch it again?
No, not really. No, I can live without it.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it, but if it was on TV and nothing better to do, let's pop it in.
Maybe, yeah, I wouldn't pop it in, like, because that would require me actually buying the disc.
You're right. No, well, let's just not change the channel. There you go.
Yeah, I can go with that. And now, last on our list, it is The Hobbit: Battle of the Five Armies. The last in the unnecessarily long Hobbit trilogy by Peter Jackson, which is also, as far as we know, the very last of the J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth adaptations. Movie-wise. To think that we're already at this point, like, remember when we were doing our review of Desolation of Smaug? Smaug, the Smaug monster, and we were like, well, there's the end. Oh my God, it's so awesome, and see you next year. And we were like, fuck.
Yeah, I definitely remember that.
And now we're here, and I've always been the kind of I've always defended the Hobbit movies. Like, a lot of people who are big fans of the movie, and especially the original animated film, which I unfortunately have yet to see at this point, they are saying, oh, this movie's too long, it's a lot of unnecessary changes, why they had to make it 3 movies. And for the most part, I've always defended the movies. Like, I've enjoyed them for what they are. As someone who's never read the book or watched the animated movie, I like this movie for what it was. These movies for what they were, and I was like, well, these movies are perfect. I gave the last 2 movies a 5 out of 5. But this, I don't know, it's like, those 2 movies were building up to something really big, really huge, and this movie was big and huge, just unneeded. Like, I feel like it felt like they were setting up so much stuff, and in the end you have something that's so big and disorganized at the same place. The thing is, like, it builds up. It takes like a simple premise. Like with the first 2 movies, they were the 2. It's just the Hobbits. Like what's his Bilbo Baggins, Gandalf, and the 12 or 13 dwarves. They're on a mission to kick Smaug out of the mountain, so that they can get have their home back.
Reclaim what's rightfully theirs.
Right, and the thing is, like, you've had these orcs there who are, for some reason, CG and not instead of practical, who are supposedly the main villains of those first 2 movies. However, they weren't very interesting, but that was okay because, we still had Smaug, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who was amazing. But then we have a movie where they kill Smaug
in the first 15 minutes.
And so what we're left with, essentially, is the uninteresting orcs from the first 2 movies as our main villains, and they did build up the return of Sauron, only to be to be cast away within like the first half hour by what. Okay, I again, I'm not I'm not a hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, but like the person, like that team of people that led by like what's his name, Christopher Lee, I think Saruman. I like to refer to them as the Legion of Super Wizards. Like Gandalf, he was, in the last movie, he was fighting off Sauron's like minions, and then in this movie, he's rescued by the Legion of Super Wizards. And gets to join the big battle between the 5 armies, between I guess Thorin Oakenshield. He was the main dwarf, and he's become possessed in a way by his greed and his fear and paranoia of losing his home and his treasure and his gold. Because in the last 2 movies, he's slowly become more and more obsessed over like the reclaiming what was his, similar to how I guess Frodo and Gollum and got obsessed with like the ring.
Yeah, and I remember when we were watching that big battle scene, seeing. I guess I was asking you if those were the Nazguls that we would then see in the later Lord of the Rings movies, and I think that's what they were. Because there was like the 9 the 9 people they were fighting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a really cool fight scene with the Legion of Super Wizards versus like an army of Sauron's like ghost knights.
Yeah, again, I think those were the Nazguls that we would then see later on.
Oh, okay, yeah. But where was I, man? Oh, yeah. Okay, so now he's like, okay, we have all this treasure, and even though we're going to make we made a lot of promises to give this treasure to certain people, we're going to say, fuck it, let's keep all this treasure to ourselves. That's, Thorin's like, we're keeping this all to ourselves, and that's what caused this huge battle between, like, the elves who want their piece of, their elf treasure that's left there. The humans that want, I guess, half of that treasure because it was promised to them for helping the dwarves.
It's not just that, but I mean, their village was destroyed. They had nowhere to go.
It was rampaged Godzilla style by Smaug. Schmoogie. And then you have like the dwarves. You have the dwarf army. They eventually come in to support Thorin. And then you have, I guess, 2 orc armies who want the mountain purely for like a strategical vantage point to help take over the rest, to help them take over the rest of Middle Earth for Sauron. So it's this big like I guess 4 or 3-way battle between like the elves and humans are on one side. You have the dwarves on another side, and they have the 2 orc armies that are trying to get them from 2 different angles.
But of course, they all unite before the big clash. Yeah. I don't think it's giving much away. I mean,
right. Everyone teams up to fight the orcs in the end. But I remember, like, I hate to spoil ahead, but they bring back the eagles, man.
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do.
They bring back the eagles. It's like, why can't you have the eagles in the beginning?
And they bring in bats too.
They bring in bats. Yeah, the eagles hunt the bats. But this movie is just like so all over the map that it doesn't know what to focus on.
It's all action. It's like action.
Do we focus on Bowman and his family? Do we focus on the dwarves, Thorin and his addictions, or like his paranoia? Do we focus on Bilbo, the main character of the book? And how he's coming along? Do we focus on Gandalf and how he's dealing with all this? Or do we focus on that stupid unibrow guy?
Or how about the little elf boy?
Little elf boy.
Well, I'm talking about what's his name?
Legolas.
Legolas, yeah. How about we focus on Legolas when he was even supposed to be here?
Or do we focus on the elf girl and her romance with one of the dwarves? It's like this movie's so all over the map. While at the same time you have this big battle going on. It's just like, I don't know, like it's the movie is entertaining, but at the same time kind of frustrating because it doesn't wrap up the story in a very satisfying manner, at least to me anyways. Yeah,
no, I mean, for me, for the most part, it's like I said, it's pure action. It's just like it's junk food. Just keep on eating. It's all really consumed from this particular third movie. So I mean,
at least I feel like with the first 2 movies, they felt well balanced with its character, with their character interactions, and then their action set pieces. But with here, it's like let's just take the climax that was going to take place at the end of the second movie.
To end it 15 minutes or as soon as it starts. That's something I don't get. I mean, do you think it would have been better off if they had finished the dragons with the second movie?
Yes. But then again, no one would have went to seen the third movie if that was the case.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Because, like, now I'm starting to see, like, the faults of why making this 3 movies was a bad idea. Where it's like all that build-up from the first 2 movies didn't really pay off all that well. Because at the end of the day, it's like, oh, the battle ended. Hooray for us. But then it doesn't feel like nothing has really been accomplished.
Right, and even so, after the 15 minutes are over, everything dealing with the five armies, that's technically filler, right?
I don't know, but like they beat the orc armies in the end.
Uh-huh.
But what does that mean for like Lord of the Rings? Not much really, because we don't see these orcs in the at least I don't think we see these orcs in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And as for Sauron, well, he was already dispatched very quickly.
Yeah.
So like you could have had Sauron be dispatched, take out the orcs, and have Smaug be defeated and saying, oh, Smaug is defeated, but we still have that enemy who is still, might come back. Looming over us, waiting for the events of Lord of the Rings to happen.
Yeah.
It's this whole. It doesn't really feel. It doesn't feel necessary in the end, and I don't know. Like, I will say, I like the actors. I think they gave great performances again. Special effects are amazing, and I guess the only person who I really hated was the unibrow guy for being just so unnecessary, sticking his face where it doesn't belong. Like, you could have written him out. I guess he was made to be like a comic relief, but
you could have written him out off almost anything. I mean, he wasn't important at all. I mean, all the little jokey scenes he had weren't really that funny and didn't advance the plot in any way.
And does he get any sort of comeuppance for his cowardness and his weaselly, attitude towards like trying to avoid combat and have other people do things for him instead of working him for himself? Not really, no. I mean, he cross-dresses, tries to pass himself off as a woman to try to like avoid battle, but
well, he also almost gets hanged, but then they decide, oh no, we should rebuild before we try to kill anyone. What's more important?
But no, he doesn't get any sort of comeuppance. It's just like, oh yeah, well, there's the end of him.
Well, he was supposed to get his comeuppance, but then what's the character's name? I forget, but he's like, no, leave him be.
Bowman.
Don't give him what he deserves. Let's just go do our own thing.
Yeah, and he should have just died when Smaug landed on his former mayor, king of that fishing village.
And you figure after all the times he technically does betray them, like who knows how many times with his cowardice and whatnot. You think they would, he gave him a chance once. How many more chances are you going to give him?
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, I do have to say this. I liked where Bilbo's character and where his journey has brought him, the point that his journey has brought him towards, where he started out as a very cowardly kind of person who wants to do nothing but, like, live as a peaceful hobbit and smoke weed or whatever they smoke, whatever the thing they smoke. And here he's really he's come so far, and he's really come into his own and has really displayed a lot of competency in the way of trying to get these factions together to unite against the orcs. And he's shown a lot of bravery and a lot of, honestly, like, badassery. He makes like the tough decisions in terms of, helping out the person who he believes is still his friend. Yeah,
personally, my favorite scenes of the movies are his interactions with was it Thorin?
Thorin.
With Thorin near when they're in the mountain. Those were easily the best parts. Just seeing I feel like Bilbo just like felt so almost like betrayed from the person he knew to the person he was looking at that very moment.
Very, very much so.
So again, for me that was kind of like the best part of their interactions, personally.
Yeah. So I guess to final thoughts, man. I'll let you go first since I've done this mostly.
I got you. Well, honestly, it was a weak way to end the trilogy. In a sense, I don't think to this day I even watched the first one, but I know you and me both enjoyed the second one, and this third one, again, just like most of the movies I've seen this year have been okay, which is kind of a sin for a Lord of the Rings movie, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, it was epic, you know, it had epic moments, but those epic moments weren't really warranted, or I don't know. Other than that, for me, I'd give this movie 2 stars, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. I think when I say I don't you know what, I don't know why I say 2 stars. I mean to say just 2, but I'm like, no. This for me again. This movie just gets. I give it a 2 out of 5.
Wow, man. Wow. For me, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I'd say it's still very entertaining. There's not a whole lot of meat to this story. It's just nothing but full on battles. And I guess if this big battle was like, I don't know, it's like they try to take the ending of Return of the King and try to stretch that last battle on, make it a whole movie out of it. And while it was epic, it didn't necessarily work as a movie in and onto itself. That's what makes Return of the King so much more enjoyable than Battle of the Five Armies, because there was still a lot of story to be told. Whereas here it's just, let's just wrap everything up.
Fight.
And let's wrap everything up and take our sweet-ass time with doing that. Yeah. And because of that, it really left a much rather lackluster, or rather like it's an ending that left me unsatisfied, left me like wanting more. It's like, oh, like the battle like didn't even finish like spectacularly. It was just it just simmered down to where like, oh, it's over. Okay, I guess Bilbo's going home. Okay.
What about the people? what about their village? What are they gonna do with the money? What's gonna happen?
He was like, oh, okay, I guess so. I mean, it just kind of ended on a whimper, sadly, and for that, I'm gonna have to give it like I mentioned, a 3 out of 5. And I just say, like, for anyone who doesn't want to bother with the trilogy, just watch the first 2 movies, and then watch like the first 15 minutes, and maybe the last 15 minutes of this movie.
There you go.
Yeah, should have really been only 2 movies, I guess. Yeah. So those are our thoughts on all the movies that we have seen in 2014.
I did not watch enough movies. Not nearly enough.
Yeah, but we made it, man, and so there's only one thing left for us to do to finally put a cap on this year that just passed us by.
Thank God. This has been the busiest year I've ever had in a long time.
Yeah, but don't worry, man. We still got more. We still got more to do, man. As we get into our next video, which will be our best and worst of 2014. So I'm Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir.
Pete.
And until next time, everybody, take care.